The scandal surrounding a union slush fund set up in the 1990s by the Prime Minister's former boyfriend has dogged Julia Gillard on and off for nearly 20 years. In August, the Prime Minister called a press conference and answered every question put to her about the affair in the hope it would bring the issue to an end. And it did, but not for long. Today, a central figure in the saga flew back to Australia from his home in Malaysia, pushing the matter firmly back into the spotlight. That figure is self-confessed former union bagman Ralph Blewitt. 7:30 tracked him down in Melbourne ahead of his appointment to meet the Victoria Police Fraud Squad later this week. Lisa Whitehead reports.
Mr Blewitt, why have you decided to come to Melbourne now to speak to police?
At the request of Harry Nowicki and Robert Galbally, my lawyers, to seek further advice.
Are you speaking with police this week?
Subject to preliminary discussions with Robert Galbally, yes.
Are you seeking immunity from prosecution?
Yes.
Why have you decided to step forward now after all these years?
I was having trouble with recollection of the events. In recent times, I've been shown numerous documents that have been uncovered by Freedom of Information and various other sources that have refreshed my memory as to the course of events that occurred and filled in some of the gaps in my memory.
Former self-confessed AWU bagman Ralph Blewitt has been living overseas for 15 years. Today he stepped back into the political fray. He announced he'd be going to see the Victorian Fraud Squad to tell all about his involvement in the scandal that just won't go away for Prime Minister Julia Gillard, involving the activities of her former boyfriend, union official Bruce Wilson.
I had no knowledge of what Wilson's activities were in Victoria. The only thing that I was directly involved in was the AW Workplace Reform Association in West Australia.
And the setting up of that fund and the Prime Minister's involvement in that.
I think there's sufficient evidence out there now. It's on the public record. I don't need to make any further comments.
Does Julia Gillard still have questions to answer?
Yes.
And what are those questions?
No comments.
Is your recollection clear about the Prime Minister's involvement?
Yes.
And can you give us any substance in terms of what that involvement was generally without
not before I have further discussions with Robert Galbally.
In the 1990s, Ralph Blewitt was an official with the Australian Workers' Union. Bruce Wilson was a branch secretary. The pair were accused of being behind a fraud scandal in which hundreds of thousands of dollars from developers were paid into a slush fund and then siphoned off. Mr Wilson's girlfriend and lawyer at the time was Julia Gillard, then with Slater and Gordon. She helped set up the fund, but has always emphatically denied any knowledge of the fraud.
Can you say categorically, Prime Minister, that none of the funds in this entity were used to pay for renovations on your house?
I've dealt with this allegation a lot in the past, and let's be very clear about it. I paid for the renovations on my home in St Philip Street in Abbotsford. Like millions of other Australians, I had the unhappy experience that I had a few blues with contractors along the way.
Most of the year, Julia Gillard refused to answer questions about the AWU slush fund. In August, she finally fronted the media to answer questions in a marathon hour-long press conference.
Are you satisfied? Was your conduct as a lawyer throughout this matter ethical?
Yes.
Prime Minister, do you think that you say that you weren't a signatory to that initial document?
No, I was not.
Prime Minister,
Dennis.
As I understand it, when these issues were first questioned within the AWU, the matter was looked at Slater and Gordon by Bernard Murphy. Now, when I presume he then informed you of these issues, what was your reaction at that time? This is specifically the activities of Mr Blewitt and Mr Wilson.
Well, I'm not in a position, for all the obvious reasons about legal professional privilege, to canvass the contents of files operated by solicitors at Slater and Gordon. What I can say to you, Dennis, and what I think your question is trying to drive at, is once I became aware that I had been deceived about a series of matters, I ended my relationship with Mr Wilson.
But despite the Prime Minister's exhaustive denials, Mr Blewitt's arrival in Melbourne today pushed the issue back on centre stage.
Are you urging other people to step forward who are involved in this?
I would say to anybody that has any knowledge of this, please come forward and clear the decks. Get it out there. The public have a right to know. The police need as much information as they can so that they can, if they deem necessary, reopen and investigate the thing to see whether or not crimes have been committed.
If Mr Blewitt is prepared to clear the air and tell the Australian people about his role in this fraud, so should Prime Minister Julia Gillard honestly and directly answer legitimate questions about what she knew.
Today, Mr Blewitt was flanked by two men who have been relentlessly pursuing the story. Former Sydney radio host Mike Smith, who was sacked by 2UE's owners Fairfax Media for his coverage of the case, and former industrial lawyer Harry Nowicki, who's researching a book on the history of the AWU. Ralph Blewitt says he's choosing to speak out now because of what he sees as attempts to shut the story down.
I will not stand by and see freedom of speech and freedom of the press shut down. I cannot stand by and see that happen, and I won't. I'm sorry, I won't do that. I will not do that.
What do you have to say to union members?
I'm sorry. I deeply regret having been a part of that activity at that time. It was never my intention to do any harm to members of the Australian Workers' Union. At no time did I personally financially benefit from it.
Are you urging Bruce Wilson to come forward?
That's a decision Bruce Wilson has to make. He has to live with the consequences of his actions the same as I do.
Have you had a guilty conscience?
Yeah, a little, yeah.